Knowledge is power. I have been told this phrase again and again in all of my student life, but recently I took a moment to ponder upon what it actually means, and I realized that I didn't have a clue. So I surfed the internet looking for different interpretations people had regarding this phrase, and none of them really satisfied me. All everyone I read were saying was that knowledge helps us develop. Knowledge helps us succeed, it helps us make better decisions, and that it's more powerful than any sort of physical power, and brains is better than bronze, and etc. These interpretations didn't answer my questions at all. How is knowledge powerful? What does gaining knowledge do that gives us power? What is this power anyway? What is the nature of power that comes from gaining knowledge? What does this power do exactly? After reading these interpretations online and asking some of the people I know, I realized people literally had no exact idea of what this quote actually means. They just used this quote to motivate themselves and others to study. That's it. Now, not only did I needed to answer these questions of mine, but I also needed to verify if what this phrase suggests is actually true. For all I know, it might not be true. So after lots of telepathic chats with my bosom buddy brain and lots of pondering, I came to establish a definitive interpretation of this phrase that encompassed the answers to my questions. In this video, I will be sharing with you that interpretation. But before that, let's first establish a common definition of the words knowledge and power, since both of these words may mean different things to different people. So what does knowledge mean? Knowledge is different from just information. Information is just raw data that your senses are continuously gathering. But when that information or data is meaningful to you in any way, if it brings about some sort of change in your behavior or perspective, then that information becomes knowledge. For example, knowing a certain historical fact about European trade history might not be meaningful to an aspiring programmer, so for them it's practically useless and hence it's just information. But for someone else who really enjoys history and takes pleasure in learning from it, historical facts may mean a lot, hence for them it would be knowledge. I hope this makes sense. Now, what is the meaning of power? Power refers to the capacity to control and manipulate things. The more power you have in a certain area, the more influence and control you have over the resources present in that area. For example, if you are a CEO of a company, you have the power to direct the employees and resources of your company to any outcome you want. You can have the company sink like the Titanic or do something monetarily productive with it. The idea is that you have that awesome amount of control because you are the most powerful person in your company. I hope this is making sense. Now that we have covered the semantics, let's get down to my actual interpretation of the quote. I have come to realize that knowledge is power because knowledge gives us the ability to predict the consequences and outcome of our actions and events before they even occur. Allow me to explain this with a very simple example. If I ask you to put one of your bare hands in a fire for about 1 minute, would you do it? It's very likely that your answer is going to be a capitalized no with an exclamation mark. The answer isn't important here. What's important is the thought process that led you to that answer. When I asked you the question, you likely thought like this, that hey, if I put my bare hands in a fire, my hands are going to get burned and it's going to hurt a lot. I don't want that outcome, so no, I will not do that. So you see what you did there. Based on your knowledge of fire, you predicted the consequences of your action before you even actually did it. On the basis of that rational prediction, you evaluated if the consequences of putting your hand in fire is something you want or not. Since you did not want the consequence, you simply chose to avoid practicing the action that led to it. Similar to this example, if you are very knowledgeable in subjects like communication, conversational hypnosis, and business communication, you can predict very easily how your words will affect the person you are talking to. You can predict beforehand the reaction to your action. If you're knowledgeable in the field of nutrition, you would easily be able to predict what kind of health-related consequences would come out of your diet. If you're knowledgeable about physics and projectile motion, you can predict where a missile would land if you launch it at a certain angle. If you're knowledgeable in the field of business investment, you can predict very likely which investment you make is going to profit you and which would likely serve your loss. If you are not knowledgeable about the things you are doing, then you simply lose the ability to predict the outcome of your interactions with it. If you don't have the knowledge that fire is harmful, you would put your hand in it to test what it feels like. We all did that when we were kids, didn't we? If you're not knowledgeable about the subject of how to go about properly communicating, you would have trouble predicting what kind of reaction your words will get, making it tougher for you to communicate. If you're not knowledgeable about nutrition, you would not be able to predict if your current diet is healthy or not. If you are ignorant about projectile motion, you can't predict where a missile launched at a certain angle would land. If you are not knowledgeable in the field of business investment, you will fail to predict which investment will profit and which will not. I hope these examples are making sense. Now, because of our ability to predict the outcome of actions and events based on our knowledge, we can make better decisions in our life. We can make better decisions on what's the best way to reach a certain outcome. If I know by doing something I will not reach the outcome that I want, then I will choose to do things differently, won't I? If you know your actions are not going to help you reach the goal you want, you will choose to do things differently, won't you? This ability to predict, or the ability to, in a sense, peek into the future and see how your actions will consequence in, gives you and me more control in our life. The more control we have, the more powerful we become. Because of my knowledge, I can control the outcome of things that I'm knowledgeable about. For example, if I'm very knowledgeable in the field of communication, I can predict how you would likely react to my words. Since I can predict which words will generate which reactions from you, I can then simply choose which is the reaction that I want. Do I want to make you feel interested in me? Do I want to piss you off? Do I want to make you think and be open-minded? Or do I want to persuade you to do something for me? Whatever reaction is it that I want from you, I could just go for it and communicate with you in a way that would help me achieve it. Is this making sense to you? You can surely tell by my examples that I'm not particularly that knowledgeable about how to give proper examples to a global community, and that's why I have a hard time predicting your reaction to them. Since I can't predict your reactions, I'm a bit unsure if these will get the message across. So do let me know in the comments below if you find my examples appropriate or not, and if you have any suggestion for improvement, please make sure to mention it as descriptively as possible. I would really appreciate that and be indebted to you. With this simple knowledge that I just gave you, you can predict that I would likely appreciate you if you commented giving me some feedback. So for some reason, if you want that outcome, if you want me to feel a sense of appreciation towards you and feel indebted towards you, you can go for it and comment. To end the main discussion of my interpretation of this quote, I would just like to finish what we have discussed up until now with the following words. Knowledge is power because knowledge allows us to predict the outcome of actions and events before they even occur. This ability to predict allows us to manipulate those actions and events so that we can guide them to the outcome we want. Overall, giving us more control in our life. Overall, giving us more power in life. Now that we have discussed the interpretation in a bit of depth, let's move on to discuss the implications of it. First of all, we can't predict the outcome of actions and events to an absolute exact, but we can measure the likeliness of it. For example, given the data present regarding suicide bridges, if I were to jump down from Golden Gate Bridge, I can predict that I would likely be dead when I fall, but there is still a very slight chance I would survive. The chances of things acting out as you predicted depends on your knowledge of the specific situation that you are predicting about. I won't say it depends on your experience because all experience does is give you knowledge. In my point of view, it doesn't matter whether you get your knowledge from a book that is reading someone else's experience or by experiencing it yourself. Knowledge is knowledge. I would admit though, in some cases experiencing things yourself gives you better knowledge of some of the aspects of it that can only be experienced. But sometimes the emotional and time-related investment that comes with experiencing things blocks your intellect from gaining the necessary knowledge. So whatever means of knowledge you prefer, keep the limitations of your own experiences in your mind. When I realized how knowledge converts to power, I began to see knowledge differently. I realized I want to be knowledgeable about the situations that I plan to be in the future, and I am comfortable being ignorant about things that have nothing to do with the future I plan to be in. For example, I plan to be a motivational speaker, I plan to be a successful YouTube publisher, I plan to be an entrepreneur, I plan to be a hypnotherapist, I plan to serve people with respect to their mental health. I plan to stay healthy and happy in the future. I plan to be in a committed marriage in the future. I plan to be wealthy in the future. I plan to be socially successful and influential, and so forth. Since these are some of the situations I plan to put myself in the future, hence being knowledgeable about these things is necessary for me. I would want the ability to predict outcomes when I'm in these situations. Learning what happened in history, how things work in quantum physics and organic chemistry, since these things have nothing to do with the future I plan to have, I can be comfortable staying ignorant about them. I don't need the ability to predict the outcome of events in these fields. Similarly, I want you to ask yourself the same questions. What are the situations you plan to be in the future? Some of you plan to start your own business. Some of you plan to be in a committed relationship with someone. Some of you plan to be more happier and healthier. Some of you plan to be rich and wealthy. Whatever situations you plan to be in the future, that is what you need to be knowledgeable about. Being knowledgeable about these specific areas is what I suggest you prioritize. It is these areas you need the expertise to be able to predict things. So with all of this in mind, I would like to bring this video to its ultimate end by sincerely and seriously asking you the following questions. What are the situations you plan to put yourself in the future? And what are the situations you are currently in that you can't properly make predictions about? And in your 24/7 daily life, how much knowledge are you actually gaining that would help you predict things better when you are actually in all of these situations? Please, you can put your answer as comment below this video, and that would not only help you sort out things for yourself, but it would help motivate others to do the same. So with that, allow me to wrap up this video. Be sure to read the post-video description section below this video. I hope this video was helpful to you, and if you have anything to add to the topic, then please be sure to comment so that we can continue discussing about it. If you want me to keep making more videos, then be sure to subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs down for how not awesome it is, and be sure to share this video to spark practical curiosity. With that, super duper thank you for watching, and see you awesome folks in another video.